So one of my favorite strategies and tips that we use is called behavioral momentum. So what does that mean? It means that we want to create some positive momentum in order to get our students or our client to do the behaviors that we want to do. So instead of starting off with the demand that might be a little bit more difficult, we start off with some easier demands. They are sometimes called high Ps or high probability responses. And by getting some positive momentum through those high Ps, then they're more likely to comply with the more challenging request as well.
I think about things in my own life too, right? So, for instance, if I've got a pile of stuff to do, I take a deep breath and then it becomes overwhelming. And sometimes I walk away from it. Yes, that's a
Yep.
confession. But if I'm shown one thing at a time, I can get through it one thing at a time, one thing at a time. So, oftentimes, what I'll do is when I make my to do list, I actually make my to do list on different pages so that I only see one or two things at a time. So if you relate that, that example back to your kiddos, if, you're teaching your student, for instance, math problems, instead of starting with the multiplication question or the 3-column addition question that involves carrying, etc., start with some basics that they know how to do and that they know how to do well to boost their confidence.
It's also a great tip in behavior management. So if you have a child who's maybe on the verge of a meltdown and you can tell that you're seeing some of those precursors and they need a little bit of momentum with some successful things that they can do. So throw in some high Ps, get them back on track, and then go back to the request that you had initially gave them so that there's definitely follow through. By giving them some of that positive momentum has been shown to increase the likelihood that they're going to do that behavior.
Within certain programs, so for instance, a skill acquisition program, if you're halfway through a program and the kiddos mastered certain things, so for instance, I'm thinking prepositions, right? So if you're teaching a child in, front, and behind, that can be a tough concept, right? But if the child's already mastered in, on top, under, what I'm going to do is I'm going to throw in some in, on top, unders, maybe ask for one in front, go back to some in, on top, and unders, and while I'm at it, I might actually throw in some mastered attributes like big, small, etc., because they can do that easy peasy. Then go back to in front, in, on top, under, oh, mastered attributes, behind, right? That's also high probability responses or behavioral momentum.
Also good for maintenance and generalization.